Welcome to the Heat Beat Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today, here on twitch.tv/MIA Heat Beat, on the bottom left is our producer and co-founder, Brian Goins.
Good evening, guys.
Good evening, Brian. Brian, you've been on a couple shows lately. It's nice when you're participating.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. It's nice. I like you around. Brian, you and I are the co-founders. Brian, you and I started this 8 years ago on an iPad making bad jokes about the Heat, and look where we are now.
On an iPad making bad jokes about the Heat?
Nothing.
Oh, yeah, no, listen. That voice that you heard is our guest for today, the legendary Will Manso.
Yeah,
Will, thank you for coming on.
Hey, guys.
Local legend.
I listen to you guys only for the bad jokes, so that's why I'm here.
Listen, you're going to get bad jokes and a lot of on-off stats. The other voice you heard on the left-hand corner of the screen is Alex Musibay, a.k.a. Moose. What's up, Moose?
What's going on, people? Happy to be here. I know it's not hangover time, but let me tell you something. I earned this today, so I'm going to enjoy it.
By the way, everybody, check out our post-game show hosted by Alphonse Sydney, Hangover Time, here on Twitch. After every single Heat game, check that out. It's Alf, Tiffany, and a bunch of other of your favorite Miami Heat Beat hosts and guests every week. Alf's already had Izzy Gutierrez from ESPN, had George Sedano, Chris Cody. Alf's a guest booker, man. Alf's out here working, grinding hard, and we're here with Will Manso.
How'd you get stuck with me then? How the heck did you get stuck with me?
I wanted you, Will. Listen, you've been on before. I'm a big fan of yours. I love you. You're the best. We miss you on television. It's not the same. I know that Ron and Jax are holding it down, but we miss you on the broadcast. I was going to ask you, you haven't been to the arena, right?
I went one time for a preseason game. The thing is, because I'm not doing anything with Fox right now because we don't have the road studio in Fort Lauderdale set up. We can't use it yet. So I went for a preseason game with Channel 10 for my regular job, and it was eerie, man. It was just like, have you guys been there? Have you guys been over the arena yet for a game? Yeah, it's just, you're up at the top, you're looking down, there's nothing. You see the players down there like little ants running around, there's fake crowd noise. It's definitely an adjustment. I'm probably going to head up next home games that they get back here after this weekend. But it's hard to us, man. We all miss it. By the way, Moose, I always use a red cup when I do these, just to let people guess.
Oh yeah. They don't got to know. As long as it's red cup, you're golden.
95% chance it's water, but what the hell? Make them drink.
Cheers, my friend.
I've been stopped because we have the solo red cups at home, and I sometimes make my iced coffee and I pour it in there and I take off in the car. And I got pulled over one day. I was having an iced coffee kind of more in the afternoon, and I got pulled over because somebody thought I was drinking and driving. And I was like, no. It's like,
red cup usually equals alcohol. Very rarely is it equal water or coffee.
This is Panther coffee espresso in here, okay?
Yeah, you got to, if you're driving, you got to put that in a coffee mug.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not advocating. It's just a little
Coffee mug.
So we have Will on. I kind of want to get into some of the stuff that happened last night. Weird game, Will, because the Heat kind of started off where their offense looked like it didn't work. They were really struggling to score. It kind of looked disjointed. It's been a little bit of that all season. Part of that's been Jimmy's been out, but I mean they were all hands on deck yesterday, and it looked weird. Then Spo went to 3 guards, Jimmy at the 4, and Bam. And that really greased the wheels of the offense. They were moving. They were playing a lot more north-south, more pick and roll, less handoffs. And that really got them back in the game. Then they started with their 2 big lineup. Everything looked good. And then we all know what happened at the end. I'm kind of curious, I think the offense has been kind of the thing that's been most weird to me. The defense is at ranked 11th already, but their offense, I think, is near the bottom of the league. What do you make of that?
Well, number one, turnovers. I mean, I think you guys are big into delving into numbers, but you don't have to dig too deep to figure out that the Heat are near the bottom of the league in turnovers. And if you turn the ball over as much as they do, and you look at the amount of shots that the opposing team gets, I think last night it was like an 18 or 20 shot difference from the field. I mean, just mathematically alone, it decreases your chances of scoring a lot of points and beating a team. And they ended up only losing by 2, yet the Celtics had a lot more shots on the field. And that's been a common theme because of the turnovers. And the funny thing is last night they didn't really turn the ball over. So that was a good step, but they weren't rebounding, which is an issue you mentioned going with the guards and stuff. I mean, there's tough decisions for Spo because if you're not rebounding and you go small, maybe you're scoring more, but then you're not getting second chances. You're getting defensive rebounds. And those are issues that right now they have to figure out. And guys, I know, a lot of people point to the energy, and sure, that's part of it. I think the getting up for every game after you get to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 months ago. And this is a weird thing about this season is usually if you go to a finals, right, you have still a pretty long off season where you kind of let it all, decompress, get back, have a full training camp, and it sort of leaves your mind. This team, it's not an excuse, but it hasn't left any of our minds. It feels like they just played 2 weeks ago in the NBA Finals. And I think there's part of that they need to just get through and get over whatever that wall is. And then the final thing, guys, and I know we can probably discuss it more, is look, they've got a new point guard, a guy who hasn't played the point much in Tyler Hero that they're really trying to teach him on the job. And Tyler is a hard worker, man. He's gonna figure it out. But right now, he's not Goran Dragic. You know, he's not even Mario Chalmers right now when it comes to running the point. I mean, he's
legend.
The GOAT.
Yeah, he's not a point guard just yet. He just can't, you know, and that's not a knock on him. He's got to figure it out, and Spo's giving him that chance. So a combination of all that, I think, is a reason why they're struggling offensively.
Want to give us a couple shout outs to the chat. Thank you, DJ Ballin from Germany. Thanks for being up. This is a tough listen. Thanks for coming up, staying up with us, listening. We really appreciate that. Yeah. Listen, that Europe, being an NBA fan in Europe is tough. It's not an easy job. Moose, kind of want to rope you in because I know Tyler Hero's your guy. He's been a lot better. Kind of Drip's been a lot better. Kind of to Will's point, you know, he's kind of thrusting that point guard position. I mentioned this on the pregame show yesterday, and I think a little bit on the pod before that. I think he's in the 95th percentile as a pick and roll ball handler, which has jumped dramatically up from the start. I think he's gotten a lot better in that role. He's not the quickest guy, right? But I think his shooting allows him separation, and I think he's really smart and patient. He's as a passer, I think he's much improved. I don't think the point guard stuff's a problem. I think they're committed to playing him, but I think it's more of they don't have elite shooting right now. Like Tyler is shooting, I think, in the low 30s.
Well, not to cut you off, but the point, Tyler's getting looks. He's just missing them the last 3 games or so. So it's not like he's fumbling and stumbling everywhere and he's terrible. He's just, when he gets loose and he's not hitting the shots, when he's in rhythm and he's hitting shots and he facilitates it, we've seen him rebound a lot this year too, he's going to be fine. Right. Just when he doesn't hit shots, you lose that element. And look, the Heat, when their shooters don't shoot and they don't hit threes, we see what happens.
He's at 30%, a little bit a shade below 30% for the year. And like, if they don't have two elite shooters coming off those handoffs, I don't really think those sets work because Jimmy's a non-shooter. So if you can cheat a little bit off of Jimmy, and if Tyler's not hurting you on that handoff, you can really go under. And once you go under on Tyler, that becomes really difficult for him and he's not. You know, he's obviously the wingspan and stuff is overstated, but like if he's not shooting at an elite level, and I know Duncan has the percentages look good, but it has been streaky because he'll make his first three and then he'll miss five and then he'll get a 4-point play at another. So I don't know, Moose, what do you think? Like I feel like it's been really weird. I think a lot of it's familiar, but like some of the stuff's not. I don't know. It's really really weird.
So I'm really glad you threw it to me because I've been getting a lot of people in my mentions today on talking to me about drip. Which by the way, Will, I'm going to need your help. We're trying to get this off the ground. His nickname is Drip. Anytime he's on fire, he's Drip Drop. So if you could drop that in there sometime.
We've tried this before.
I could drop it in the highlights. Tyler Hero with the drip. Let's call him.
Yes.
Drip.
Let's go.
I love it. If you can give me that, that's a Christmas in January.
Wait,
we're moving.
Will, we tried this before. Are you aware of the whole Justice Better movement?
Of course. Yeah, I remember it well.
Thank you, Eric Reed.
You got it on air with Eric. Yeah.
Eric, listen.
I mean, Justice knew about it.
Yeah,
so
you guys succeeded. You guys succeeded with Justice Better. Let's move on because it's Drip Drop now.
It's Drip Drop.
I don't know if Tyler's going to like it, but, you know.
We'll see.
Hey, best drip here.
He likes Wonder Boy.
He knows he's got drip.
Well, going back to his play this year, though, I am glad that you brought it to me because, look, for as much as I love Tyler, I've been banging the table that I don't want him at point guard. Now, with that being said, I think we're also just kind of like picking and overstating it because he really has made improvements there. And his vision, as you can see from game to game, it is noticeably better. So, applause to him for working on that. But I still feel that I don't know if it's a rhythm thing, if he's too much in his head. There is something, and you noticed it last night. Brian, I'm actually curious if statistically that was his worst game in a Heat uniform, because it definitely felt like it was his most I don't want to say like lackadaisical performance, but he felt off the entire night. And it wasn't even the shot. I just felt there was some type of disconnect last night. And unfortunately, I also think that the quick turnaround in the season has been a big killer for him, because I think those second year guys, that summer in between, is critical.
It's big. Yeah.
I mean,
It
you
is
gotta imagine.
critical.
You gotta imagine, like these people who were rookies last year, they were used to playing a short college season. Then you had Tyler play basically that entire NBA regular season, come off to the bubble, play up until the NBA Finals, and now 2 months later he's asked to play another full NBA season. That's kind of tough.
Yeah.
There
And
was
guys, but
nothing-
to your point, Moose, is that yesterday, Crotty made a good point. He got caught in the middle of a shot where he didn't know if he should pass, and he ended up throwing a bad pass.
Yes.
For turnover. They didn't turn the ball over much last night, but those are things where I think he's like thinking, well, I'm a point guard. I have to distribute, but I'm a shooter. I'm a scorer. I got the drip. It's like I think there's a lot to process, and to Brian's point, in a short amount of time, that's a lot of information. That's why when people tell me, and look, I know that social media is not the tell-all to what is real, but when fans are like, oh, bench Tyler, he stinks, he can't play the point, you got to give him more than 7 games. And I think we've seen the points where he can play the point. He's just got to get through the mental side of it and understand that it's a little bit of everything. You're still going to be asked to score. Obviously, you want to distribute, but you can't overthink as a point guard. And I do think he's probably doing that sometimes.
Once he flips that switch and it's not so much in his head and he's more just playing the game as he was his rookie year, I think we're going to see a completely different player.
I agree.
Well, I thought the offense looked great in the third quarter, and it seemed to click a lot when Duncan was getting hot, but it seemed like Jimmy was going to the paint whenever he wanted, and that helped kind of spread out the offense. If you surrounded Jimmy with the shooters, he was able to kind of drive himself into the paint. Obviously, drawing the fouls helped defensive, so they were able to so basically they weren't in transition a lot, and it basically helped them set their defense most of the possessions. So I think that also plays a part of it, because in the fourth quarter when Boston made their run, it was a lot of fast break movement that got them hot. And then towards the end, when they wanted that 10-0 run, they made a lot of threes that Miami just ended up missing.
They really stopped the handoff stuff in the third quarter, and they just kind of, if they did a handoff, it was a 4-5, so they'd do Bam KO. And they really just stopped kind of running. So what they like to do is they'll run a pistol set in the corner for Duncan or Tyler, and Jimmy will screen for that, and then Jimmy going to the rim, so you have him floating, and then you kind of pivot from that pistol into the handoff. But that just wasn't working, because if Tyler's not going to be an elite shooter, and if Duncan's going to be kind of hot and cold, then the way that used to be one of the best actions in the league, and if they're not hitting at a 40% clip, it just becomes tough, and the court shrinks, and you help off Jimmy, and that makes it really hard.
But they will get there, guys. They will.
Oh, for sure.
We can all agree that they'll get to that.
The shot profile's good.
Yeah.
They're good players. The shot profile's good. I kind of wanted to touch a little bit on I don't think the high end of this team is going to be Tyler playing point guard, because I think if they're going to be good, it's going to be with Dragic, Tyler, plus Jimmy, plus what other wing they either acquire or play. Because I don't think Jimmy's going to be the answer at the 4, and I don't think KO is going to be the long game answer at the 5, right? So it's going to be Bam, Jimmy at the 3, not the 4, plus Goran, plus Tyler. So Tyler's not going to be the point guard in the playoffs when that stuff matters, but I think kind of similar to how Phoenix did with Devin Booker, you kind of give him those reps on ball to kind of grow him as a passer and as a playmaker, kind of a trial by fire. And then when you get a guy like Chris Paul, he's a guy that can, destroy, a bent defense already. Now he has all the passing in his bag, and he's attacking, off an initial set. So that's Will. I don't know. I know you're a little more plugged into the organization than we are. Do you think that could be the kind of thinking that they're going?
Yeah, and look, I think not that the Heat would ever use a season as development, because they want to win games. They don't want to be 3-4. They want to be 7-0. They don't play games thinking, oh, it's okay, we lost because we're developing someone. They really, truly have invested in Tyler to be a guy that can run the point. They feel that that's a role that he can really have success in, and you can't do it without playing it in games. But to your point, I also know that within the organization, Spo said it publicly and privately, they know they have Goran there. And we saw last year, when they came back from in the bubble and when the playoff time came, one of the first things I was told was, before the bubble and going to the playoffs really, was don't expect a lot of Kendrick Nunn and expect a lot of Goran Dragic. And they can flip those switches. That's what the depth that they have can do. So Tyler can develop and play and get that role, but they can obviously go to Goran. And I think, honestly, guys, unless Tyler runs with this and shows significant improvement, I think they want to do that. I think they'll eventually kind of go with that. Can you imagine, though, if Tyler does get to the level where he's a consistent point guard by playoff time, then you've still got Goran as a 6th and in closing moments and in big moments of the game. You've got yourself a hell of a combination there and the ability to do a lot of things. That's the beauty of their depth. But yeah, I think within the organization, they know, look, they didn't bring Goran back to just sit in the sidelines. They brought Goran back for big moments. But in a long season, I think they want to try to see what they have in Tyler and can always go back to Goran.
And Will, to your point as well, with such a quick turnaround, what a great time to give Tyler these minutes and ease Goran back in. Obviously, my dog agrees as well.
He agrees. He agrees. Your dog agrees, which is all the most important thing. And I think that's it. And look, guys, there's another element too. We've already talked about the short off season. We've already seen Jimmy limping around a little bit. He's got that ankle. It's definitely bothering him. Even though he says it's not a big deal, he's fine. It's bothering him.
Is it the same ankle from the finals that was bothering him? Do we know?
This is his right ankle, right? So, he's been hot. It's 3 separate times I've seen him at least this season already. 3 separate times where he's come up limping. Last night he did it again, and then he scored 26 points. He looked fine. Jimmy toughs it out and he gets the treatment, but that's just Jimmy. But when you look at Tyler's 20. Tyler, we talk about that short turnaround, but it's a much easier turnaround, a 20-year-old than a 30-something-year-old coming off a bad injury, the foot injury that Goran had, and playing a long career and the issues that Goran has had with his knees. Tyler can deal with this, and the shots will drop. I feel confident of that. I mean, I really think that it stinks because they're 3 and 4, and we all kind of get caught up in it. But I think in a month or two, you're going to be looking back and saying that was just a little funk at the beginning of the year. They're going to be rolling.
To your point about Goran's play, when Goran's on the floor, the Heat are outscoring teams by almost 13 points per 100 possessions.
It's scary,
insane. Yeah. And when he's off the court, and I think part of this is that Milwaukee game where he played 3 minutes. They're outscored by 15 per 100 possessions, but the offense is a huge difference too. They're at a 97 offensive rating when he's off and a 116 when he's on, which would be. Yeah, I mean, it's you don't need the numbers to know that Goran Dragic makes your offense better, but just to see how much better they are with him on versus him off is pretty jarring. And I think considering that he gave them next to nothing last night and they still almost won that game. And listen, if Pritchard doesn't have a putback, if Duncan and Bam don't crash into each other, I feel bad because I thought Duncan did a good job of. So Will, I want you to hear my theory on this. Duncan did a really good job of staying in front of Marcus Smart, and I think Bam didn't think he would stay in front of him, so Bam came to help a little earlier, and they kind of bumped into each other.
That little lane there open,
They got the stop, but
no, everybody was blamed. It's funny how everybody got blamed. I've heard people blame Bam, Duncan, and Tyler.
Oh, it's a stupid exercise to blame anybody there. I mean,
and the reality is, it's an issue where you make a decision. It's a communication issue. It's a guy where he's supposed to be. The bottom line is they left the guy open to the basket. A guy who's 4 feet tall, open to hit the game-winning layup with a second left. I mean, it's just not good basketball. They know it. It sucks. But those are the things. Listen. If that happened in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals last year, it's a whole different story.
Bam makes the block. Bam makes the block for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It happened in Game 7 of the regular season. These are things they'll correct, but they do have to. Those are little things you have to figure out. They have to figure out.
I'm not worried, Will. I think some people are, and I think some fans are upset, and they're just people want to trade. And I imagine that they're gonna either sign a guy in the buyout market or something. I think that they're a wing short. I think they're one wing short because unfortunately Mo Harkless just hasn't been their answer that they thought he would be.
And KZ's getting no minutes.
I want to ask you, Will. I mean, we're big KZ Okpala fans here.
I am too.
And it also, Will, what it feels like? It feels like, the backup quarterback's always the most popular guy in town when the team's not doing well. And I know that they have that vacuum at power forward. And KZ, when you see him, he stays in front of Giannis. That you have that preseason game against Toronto. I know he has some defensive miss. Do you know anything about how they feel about him internally? Because
yes,
we're obsessed with him.
The answer is yes. But again, I haven't been around the team since last March. So, I don't know how he's progressed from March till now. But when I talked to some of the staff last year and even, before the season, before all the pandemic stuff, obviously, they thought KZ was, I think you guys have read this, but it's been told to me. They thought KZ was a first-round pick, a lottery-type pick. They felt he really had that talent. That's not just gossip that you heard on Twitter or, in blogs or whatever. They really felt that. And I think what happened was, his development in some parts maybe hasn't gotten there, but they love his athleticism and his ability. But again, the problem when you have depth is that if you have a young guy like this and he doesn't have certain areas of defense, certain areas where you feel comfortable with, it's very hard to throw him into the game. Because unlike Tyler's got the ability where, you can get through his defensive shortcomings at times and his learning of the point guard, but Tyler can go out and score 35 or 40 in a game and take the game under control. Casey can't do that yet. I mean, he's not at that. That's not Casey's game. So I think they really are trying to figure out what his role will be eventually. But to answer your question, they think highly of him. I really believe that they feel he is a big part of their future. Now, all that said, guys, you guys know that if a big trade offer comes up, they'll throw him out there.
Oh, no, yeah, listen.
I mean, that's just what Pat Riley operates.
I don't know if you remember, but was it at a team function or a charity event where Pat Riley said that he would not trade Shaquille O'Neal, and then like 7 hours later he did? What was it? Was it like a team? You remember that?
What function? Oh, I remember the story. I don't remember what function. But listen, the one thing there's 20-something years of covering and knowing Pat Riley is that guy he'll trade family to get a win. He doesn't care. He'll trade your dog, man. If your dog keeps barking, he'll trade him.
She's out of here. She's out of here.
Somebody. So I mean, that's just Riley, and I think that's what should give Heat fans some sort of. If there's anybody out there that's panicking, like you said, you're not panicking, nor should you be. But if there are Heat fans that are panicking or thinking this team isn't as good as last year, trust me, if Pat Riley sees that 30, 40 games in, and that's the way it's going, he's going to make a move. They're going to figure out. And if they can get a superstar, we know that too. But I wouldn't get too caught up in the superstar thing right now. I'm just talking about just help on this roster at certain positions that we talked about for this season, not necessarily long-term, like, whale, orca, whatever the heck you want to call it.
So, so J Jack 44 in chat is asking, he's like, Will, do you think that the Heat need a point guard or a power forward more? Because that's been a big topic over here.
Look, they are invested in Tyler and this experiment, I should say. And obviously they have Goins. I don't think the point guard is a position that they're panicking about or freaking about. I think too, because again, and we've seen it in other areas, Jimmy Butler was going to handle the ball a lot in big moments too, late in games, and we saw him take over the playoffs. The point guard position didn't really matter much at that point when Jimmy had the ball in his hands and he was getting to the basket and dominating. I think your point on Mo Harkless, look, I've never met Mo. Again, given the pandemic, it's so hard to talk about a guy you've never met or seen. Usually I see these guys in camp. I get to know them. I see them at practice, talk to coaches. I don't know anything about Mo Harkless other than what I had heard going into it. So I don't know why he has struggled. I don't know why he hasn't done the things that maybe they would expect and fans would expect. I don't think that they're going to lose all hope that Mo Harkless couldn't help them at some point this season. But I'm with you guys. I mean, he hasn't played well. I mean, like you said, you don't need stats for that. He hasn't played well in a lot of areas, and it's been a little disappointing. And maybe it's the transition of not having camp and on a new team. He's a veteran guy. I think he'll figure it out, but there's no doubt that that's the area that I would look more if the Heat were to look to make a move more so than a point guard.
Will, the thing
Mo Harkless, more problems.
I wrote a piece.
You can use that too. You can use that too.
I'm here for bad jokes.
This is bad jokes.
If you're in for bad jokes, wait till you see what's behind me.
Oh God.
Do you see that, Brian? Do you want to reveal to chat?
I thought it was Fabuloso, but it's something else.
No,
what do we got?
It's close.
The Heat Beat exclusive.
Precioso.
That's our guy.
I love Precious, by the way.
He's been terrific, and as a guy, like yesterday, they were having him switch on to Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And like Will, like it's incredible how they continue. And I don't want to have another show where we'll talk about how great the Heat are at finding players in the margins undrafted. But the idea of like they have a guy now.
I'm down. Are you sure?
Who can?
I'm so here for that.
Who can run a facsimile of Bam in terms of he can do the dribble handoff stuff really well, and he's a really really hard rim roller. He's Goran's new favorite buddy in pick and roll.
I love that combo. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so good. And he switched. Like I thought Well, we saw Spo in the beginning, didn't really trust Michael Beasley and Mario Chalmers in his first year as head coach, and he was always a little trepidatious of trusting young guys. He would kind of lean toward J.O. and Udonis and, kind of the veteran, even later Rashard Lewis. He always kind of trusted the veteran guys. To trust, kind of letting Tyler even defend Jayson Tatum, which I wasn't a big fan of the decision, but I understand kind of having Bam off ball to come help, but trusting Tyler in that role, and then trusting Precious, a guy who has not had a training camp, who's played 7 games, to switch on to maybe the second best offensive player in the conference. That's they're gonna have 48 minutes of a big who can switch. That's crazy.
Yeah, and that is the comparisons to Bam are obvious because they made them number one, and number two is you see it kind of when Bam was younger. And is it crazy to think that Precious looks more advanced in his game, in that type of game as a rookie than Bam did, which is nuts to think because Bam is Bam, and Bam obviously offensively what he's become, but just even defensively, or like you said, on those his ability near the basket, his ability to make smart plays, his hands. He's got great hands, and he just seems to get it. It's been a nice find. And I love him. I think the way they're using him is perfect. Like every night he gets like 7.6 rebounds, set nice screens. That ball movement you mentioned with Goins has been great. I love that combination, the way those two work. It looks like they've been working for 3 months and they've only been together for, a month or so. So I think I like the way Spo has worked in with him and the things that he's doing. And I think he's just going to continue to improve. Bam loves him. I mean, you guys listen to those Zoom conferences with the Heat. I mean, Bam can't stop raving about this kid. And it's not lip service. I mean, he really sees him in practice, how big and how well he listens to and he takes to lessons and to explanations from these players.
Like, the thing with him also is they really have him playing in a very defined role. They're not asking him to do, and I think that's really good for a young player, especially given all the circumstances we talked about with no G League and everything. All right, Precious, listen, you're going to do this. We're going to run these handoff sets and you're going to screen really hard and you're going to dive to the rim. They don't really involve him in their more complicated sets, which I think is good. I think you want to treat the young guys carefully and good, and he's very good at his role. And I thought they tried a little bit. Let's try a little switching today. We're gonna downsize. Let's try a little switching. And they made it simple. They weren't switching a lot of crazy off-ball stuff. They're like, we're gonna switch these actions. And I think that kind of organization and structure for a young player is huge.
Yeah, and I think you just said it though. They are giving him a little bit more and trying to get different looks. And it'll only expand and expand. I think his role and the things they ask him to do will expand. It won't expand to the point, obviously, where he's going to be an offensive force. Precious is a work in progress offensively on what he can do, any kind of post moves or things like that. But running those, that two-man game and setting the screen and getting to the basket and throwing it down, and the things we've seen from him, if he could just do that all year, that's a hell of a rookie for a team that's a championship caliber team already. But he just won't be that. I think he's a good enough, great enough athlete, but a strong enough and smart enough guy to learn and get even better. And they'll trust him with more as the season goes on. So I love what they're doing with him. And again, it goes back to what you said. You don't want to sit here and say, the Heat are the best at developing young players and finding these guys. But they have found a guy that, as good as he was in college, you weren't sure with a short off season if he could help you. Well, guess what? He can help you. And he's helped them so far. And I think he'll only help them even more as the season goes on.
Moose, something that I think is a really underrated part about Precious, and a little bit of Will touched on it, is kind of the activity by the rim. And last season, I think we covered a lot of the Heat were very, very good at limiting opponents at the rim. I think they were first or second in fewest field goal attempts at the rim. But when teams got to the rim, they were shooting best in the league, right? So, and part of that is because, Bam is out on the perimeter, not really in help position because of their switch stuff and their drop stuff. But now with Precious, you have another guy who, when you play him and Olynyk together, you have him kind of helping. And I know Olynyk's been a really good guy getting charges, but you kind of want a little more force there, Moose. Like, I love that kind of most about it, that they have 48 minutes of rim protection.
Listen, this was something that we were banging the table about during the playoff run. We noticed it. We see how effective Bam is, and we see the drop off when he's on the bench. So, not that Precious is there yet, but that's the goal with Precious, and that was the vision in drafting this kid. And Will, you were mentioning, it's funny how far along he looks on the offensive end compared to Bam's rookie year, because I don't know if enough people know this. Precious really picked up basketball late in life. That's why he stayed 2 years in college, and as well, which I think is helping him with the Heat. I can't say enough. I think actually working with Mike Miller those 2 years in Memphis, somebody that has been in Heat culture, Memphis may not be the biggest basketball powerhouse, but they are instituting some NBA level structure. Well, yeah, but now under Penny Hardaway, it's a little different. But they are putting in some NBA structure things. And I think that's really accelerated Precious being able to just come in here and hit the ground running.
Your dog agrees again. Your dog,
yeah. She's a big Heat fan.
Yeah, she agrees. I agree too. No, I think the bottom line is this: all of the stuff that they said with Precious when they drafted him, which was like, hey, he fits our culture. And I remember the first night that Zoom call with Precious when he got drafted, he was like, I know about the Heat culture. I remember he said, I watched them in the playoffs and I saw the way they play, and I said, that's the way I love to play and I want to play. I think part of it stems from him. You know, it's not just like he got here and they sprinkle culture dust on him and he's like this guy. He came with that already in his mind. And that's a big reason why they drafted him, aside from his talent, obviously, is that they knew he was going to have that ability to buy into whatever. And the way they speak of him and the video you see of UD and Bam and Jimmy in his ear all the time and him just listening and taking it in. That's how you get better. I mean, that's how you learn. That's how you become sort of that Heat player, that Heat culture guy that I think he's already becoming at 7 games into his NBA career.
So something I kind of want to bring up, kind of tie back to what we were talking about. So this year, the Heat are second in fewest attempts at the rim, and they're middle of the pack in percentage allowed, which that's going to be a huge, and I think that's a big, their defense is at 11th. And I know that last year their defense struggled a lot, especially early on. Point guards were torching them every night.
Yeah.
And even when they made the trade for Jay and Iguodala, it took them a little bit. It wasn't until the playoffs where they really found their footing. So the fact that the defense has been really solid so far, and it's kind of, because the offense is going to come, Will, those Goran and Jimmy and Tyler and Duncan and Bam are too good to not get this going. And the defense has, and their schedule has been kind of weird because Orlando's been playing really, really well. The Pelicans have been playing really, really well. I think Oklahoma City was one of the few gimme games. You know, Boston, Milwaukee twice. I mean that's
if you look at their schedule, probably the easiest game that they played was the OKC game.
OKC,
At least
and they won by a lot.
And they won by, and you got to think, look, if they go to Washington and they win by 20 points against a bad team. I mean, Bradley Beal will score a lot, but I mean that's not a good team. And you know, with Russell Westbrook now, but still, that's not a good team. That's the team you expect to win by double digits. And the Heat never make it easy. I think that's one thing we've learned. Even when they're good, they don't tend to make it easy. But I think they're in a position where they just got to get through this early season bumps. And look, playing Boston again Sunday will be tough, and some of the games that are coming up. And obviously, you know, you look at the schedule. There's a lot of that you play a team twice, which is weird because it's so hard to beat a team 2 times in a row, a quality team. So I almost expect them to beat Boston on Sunday and split the way they did Milwaukee. So it's almost like when they play these teams like Brooklyn, they play back, you know, double games coming up soon. It's like almost like you expect the split. It's very hard to expect the other team to win twice, you know, to win that team win twice or for you to win twice. So it's a funky schedule. I think beating the bad teams will be very important. We've seen that from the Heat in the past. When they beat bad teams, that's their key to them, because the times they've missed the playoffs in the last couple of years is when they don't beat bad teams. I mean, they sit there and struggle against the Knicks and all these terrible teams. And it comes
they
back
did last year. I keep saying that. We forget that they lost to the Knicks and the Nets when the Nets weren't very good last year, back to back, and they ended their normal regular season losing to Charlotte quite emphatically. And
they lost by 20 plus points. It was not pretty.
They were leading in the set. They were leading going into halftime or something. They okay, we're winning.
Yeah, but then
Will, that was a weird night.
I blame the pandemic. Everybody started thinking about the pandemic, and this could be it. You know.
How was that like? I haven't talked to anybody who had been there. What was that like? Because that was the night of Rudy Gobert, correct?
Yes, that Rudy Gobert. I'll never forget. I was doing a live shot on the court for Channel 10, and it was crazy because my boss had said, "Hey, you know, tied into the pandemic and the potential, you know, the COVID stuff." And you know, back then we all thought like, I mean, come on, we're not going to shut down. We may have a week where things are weird. Like nobody knew that this was going to happen like this. I mean, just for us. I mean, you know, everyday people. So I remember turning around for my live shot, and they were wiping down the seats pregame. All the people that work on the court, and they were wiping the seats down with spraying and sanitizer. There was sanitizer everywhere, and that was, remember, they had changed the interview room where it was like a secondary interview room where the tables were further away, and it was all a little weird. And I had a family member.
Lounge.
Yeah, it was very, very. No, I missed my Rooms to Go lives. Don't mess with it. I missed that.
I was gonna say that thing looks comfy. It really does.
That thing is comfy. Rooms to Go doesn't give me that couch, but it's nice to sit in. It's a nice couch. I need that couch. But long story short, I remember having a family member at the game. They had never been to a Heat game, and I went down to see her, and I said, "Hey, is it cool, huh? Hey, this could be the last Heat game with fans in a while." And lo and behold, it was. When we finished and they sent out that release and the Rudy Gobert news came down, it was just eerie, man. Everybody was just like, how long is this going to last? And little did we know, 4 months later in a bubble, they get back to work.
Kind of curious, how hard was it to like not have sports and obviously your job is around sports. Like how hard was it just to not have sports around for that long?
Let me tell you something, man. I did those 3 months. I did this. I was in my home and I set up a studio, and I had never heard of Zoom. when this started. Call me a boomer. Had you guys heard of Zoom? I was not familiar
We've
with Zoom.
been using Zoom for the pods for years, so
Okay.
we were
Chill,
very familiar.
Will. I'm with you. I just found out about Zoom like yesterday.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, dude. Because in my line of work, what do I need Zoom for? Our job is to get to know players and interview them face to face, not Zoom. So I had to learn what Zoom was and how to use it. And I basically reached out to every single media relations person in town from every sport. I'm talking about Barry University to the Miami Heat and Miami Dolphins. Yeah, there you go. Everybody, like I said to everybody, hey, no story is a bad story. Pitch me whatever story you have. And then they started saying, hey, I got this guy who's doing this, and this guy is training at home. And I would do Zooms with these players, and and then the Heat made people available, the Dolphins did. And every day I would have a Zoom with somebody. And I literally filled 3 months of just Zooming with athletes, talking about their training, talking about the pandemic, talking about their families. And that's how we filled it, man. It was.
Well, we straight quit.
Surreal that it even happened.
Oh yeah, we took a hiatus.
Well, we quit. We did a funky bracket of potential NBA 32 seed, and then now we didn't do a show for like, I don't know, what, 2 months, Brian?
I mean, we did a drunk pod, I think, but that wasn't like our show. That was, I don't even know where that was. Where did we post
I think we did I think we were on like a 5 reasons to drink or something. Shout out to Eat the Skolnick at 5 like I don't know. We were not producing content.
This was like when everybody was quarantined, so like we didn't know how long this was going to be. We thought it would be like a month. We were quarantined for like a month, and then everything would be back to normal.
We thought the same thing.
Home for a month, and then end up being more than a month, and we were just going crazy.
You guys are suckers. I listen, I told y'all, I go, we're not leaving our house for 2 years. I told you. I was like, listen, I see the writing on the wall. My friends are all chemists. I know how this works.
Yeah.
I know too much about virus proteins and the spikes on COVID. I don't want to know.
Really great analysis on the show about like refrigeration, like what is it, AC?
Oh yeah, because Christian about air conditioning and how the UV. I don't know. Listen, we've gone like deep into science here. Will, kind of want to ask you a little bit because we're running on time. Yesterday. Yeah, we have questions from the audience, but before we get
to one for Will too later though. But go with your thing, G.
Yeah, so yesterday, obviously, there was a lot of unrest in the country with everything that happened in the Capitol, the people that stormed the Capitol, and I know that the Heat and the Celtics kind of left the court together. I'm wondering, how are you experiencing that? I know you weren't there, but we're just following Tim Reynolds' Twitter account here while we're doing our pregame show, and we're just refreshing Tim and Barry and Ira and Anthony. Like, how are you experiencing that?
I mean, look, it's a tough balance because this nation is divided. So you're talking about half your audience is they stick to sports, who cares? And half your audience is like, hey, this is important content. And I follow the important content line. I mean, I think it is important that athletes in any sport have a voice to use their platform for what they see to be important. And over the years, it hasn't just been social issues. There have been all kinds of issues that athletes feel that they want to spread their message as an important message. And now in the last year and a half, we've seen how important, and more than that, really, it's Colin Kaepernick, really, this has become a platform for athletes. And it's for me, I enjoy telling these stories. I enjoy seeing athletes' point of views because one of the things as a reporter, I look at heart, I'm a reporter, and I love telling stories, and I love meeting athletes and learning about them and learning their background, the things that they struggle with. I love Bam's story of his mom and the things we all know the story of the things he overcame. I love learning about things, players and how they grew up and what they grew up in. A big part, in particular the NBA, because it is mostly an African-American sport, is the Black community and understanding what these players went through, what they still go through, even though they're millionaires. It doesn't matter. It doesn't leave you. So to me, it's important to follow and it's important to hear the stories. And I don't think the stories should go away, but it's tough for us because let's face it, I'll tell these stories and I'll get emails and tweets and messages saying, screw you, stick to sports. What do you know? Fake news. I mean, you hear it all. And, and your mind, you're just saying like, hey man, I'm just trying to do my job. My job is to cover athletes. And believe it or not, athletes are not just sports. Athletes are not just dribbling and hitting and throwing. They are a lot more than that. So if I can tell a story on Bam's mom and the sacrifices she made, why can't I tell a story about social issues and racial issues and things that athletes of all, whether you're Latin culture, Hispanic, Black, whatever it may be, things that you've had to overcome because of the situation in our country.
we love sports because like they're theater of the human condition. We love these people. We grow to, the reason why we exist as media is to be a conduit between the athlete and the public, and we are storytellers to tell these people's stories. We're not just these, you look at Bam. I mean, I'll never forget, Will, when I was next to Hassan Whiteside in the locker room, I looked up and I was like, wow, we are not the same species. We are not made of the same material. And it's like, you see these people that are superhuman, and they're these things that humanize. Yeah. That, these are things that they care about, right? Like we all bleed the same, all that kind of cliche, same race stuff, but like same, species stuff. But like for them, and we talked a little bit about the pregame, I feel bad for them because they're kind of looked upon, and Izzy Gutierrez talked about this as well in Hangover Time, that these NBA players and WNBA players and now women's soccer players and all these athletes are looked on as kind of leaders. Like the politicians are acting like children, and the athletes are the ones acting like adults. And Draymond is in talking at the podium after a basketball game, talking about again how police brutality, how white people are treated differently than black and brown people, and it's like. Yeah. At some point, it has to be exhausting that these young men, because I mean, I'm 28 years old. Is Draymond my age? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Bam's 23. Bam's 23, and he ends every media session with, "Hey, Black Lives Matter, people." He says the same thing every time.
That's a lot, Will. That's a lot for a 23-year-old man.
That's a big burden to hold as a responsibility. So instead of saying, "Hey, shut up and play," how about saying, "Hey, man, that's impressive for a 23-year-old. I have my oldest is 14. I have a 13 and 5-year-old. I would hope that when they're 23, they have the mental capacity and the understanding of life issues to be able to stand up for things they believe in and take those risks instead of just shutting up and doing what they're supposed to do, what they're supposed to do." It's just, to me, it shows leadership and an incredible thing for Bam and these players. And you mentioned Draymond, all these players from all sports. So I'm fine with it, but let's face it, guys. Half the country.
There are people that are, yeah.
Half the country.
Well, I mean,
fine with it.
I used to get DMs a lot, and like, listen, I know it's a different game. I'm doing a podcast, and you're representing Channel 10 and the Heat and all that stuff. But like, I'm pretty vocal on how I feel on things on my platform, on my podcast, and I get people, oftentimes respectful, like, "Hey, listen, I don't appreciate what you say about 45." And I have to be, I was like, "Listen, thank you for the comment, but I don't care. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not gonna, Brian and I worked very hard for this platform."
Look, we've worked really hard just to get G to shut up about the Raptors.
Yeah, listen, it's either this or Raptors talk. Will, your colleague, let me tell you something. I want to talk to you about your colleague, Clay Farrow, because I have been rehabilitating because listen, I like the Raptors. I'm not going to lie. I like watching. I love Kyle Lowry. He's my favorite basketball player. I enjoy a Raptors game, okay? I don't tweet about it anymore because he Twitters mean to me whenever I talk about them. So I've just stopped. That's it. Fine. Whatever. So
brought it on yourself.
I have been rehabilitating my image. I did the rah-rah fan stuff during the finals. I was here screaming and ranting after every game, and I feel like I have rehabbed my image.
We got into fights with the Laker fan base. It was amazing.
Oh, yeah, look, listen, I was out in forefront for Heat fans, and then I go on, Clay Ferraro was filling in. I don't know if it was for Ethan or Alex Dono on Onside Radio. Sure. And Clay, I haven't been on local radio in a while. It had been like a couple months. And my first moment in the public eye, Clay's like, "Hey, why are Raptors fans so sensitive?" And I was like, "Clay, I'm rehabbing. Don't ask me Raptors questions." Threw me to the fire, Will.
Asking an alcoholic, "Do you want a drink?"
Yeah.
Weren't you on the Levitar local hour too, right?
I was on I do like to brag. I was on a Levitar local hour.
That's the beauty of sports, though. I get hard time. I've covered the Dolphins for over 20 years, right? I got here in '99. I got here in Dan Marino's last year, and I still hear from Dolphins fans when I talk about the Giants, because I'm a Giants fan, and I root for the Dolphins, but I bleed blue. "Oh, you should care about the Dolphins." I'm like, dude, I do care about the Dolphins. I cover them. I enjoy them. So many players are old friends of mine. I love the organization, but I'm a Giants fan. It's okay. That's the beauty of sports. That's the beauty. You can cover a team and talk about a team, but still enjoy another team.
Well, I'm a Heat fan. Like, they're just saying, like, I am a Heat fan. I'm I'm a Raptors fan on the side sometimes. I'm not publicly anymore because you guys get mad.
You should move to Tampa if you love him so much.
God no, I love Miami too much. God no. Listen, listen. Miami. Why would I move to Tampa when Miami? Look at Miami. Miami's great. What you got, Musibay? I know you had a question for Will before we get to some listener questions.
Well, yeah, I got a question for Will, but before we get there, I just want to say, Will, what you said was beautiful. I agree with all of it. I think that needed to be said, and I'm glad that we went there. But my question for you is, I am fascinated by the way we're covering sports with, amidst this pandemic right now. So I wanted to ask you, have you reached a point yet where this all feels routine and normal, and going back to the way it was would feel awkward and weird? Or is this still something you're trying to get used to?
I'll be honest with you. I think that you could take the word sports out and just put life in and say to yourself, is life going to go back to what we're used to? Or is this kind of the life we accept? Like, I run a lot. I love to run, and I run with a mask now. And it's funny. People ask me, does it bother you? I'm like, I would have told you a year ago it bothered me if I did it. But now I'm used to it, and things that you change your lifestyle because of the pandemic, social distancing, washing your hands, things we should have been doing, but, more so now. I remember the last event I went to, real full event, that Heat game I was at, I went to a Billie Eilish concert there at the arena that week. And I remember thinking back now that, man, there were these kids like jumping around, this whole life in this world that now we are like, man, can we go back to that? So when it comes to sports, I don't know if we're going to go back to the days of, you mentioned the sound of the locker room, of being in a locker room with the players changing, you're over their space and on top of each other, and everybody with their hands rubbing and, everything trying to get a mic. And I don't know if we'll go back to those days. I don't think we will. I think there'll probably be more of a press conference setting. And is that okay? Sure, you can still tell stories. I think you still want the ability to interview players one-on-one and really access a player's life. How are we going to do that? We'll see. Fans is the same thing. Look, we sit there and do this for a living. We love talking about it, but in the end, we're just fans. Like, I would go to a Giants game every year, and I would, sit there and put my Giants jersey on and travel. My partner, we would go. Her and I would
Sounds
go.
Dangerous right now.
Yeah, we would go, and we're going to do that again. We're going to do that again and go wild at a game. Those are things you worry about. But I do think there will be change. Some of it will be good change, and some of it will be change that it's going to be hard to get used to. The way we do things. It's part of the reality of this crap that we've had to that we've all as a society had to deal with, but we have to.
It felt weird today. So I work. I'm a civil engineering inspector, and I was at a job site, and I'm kind of looking at the plans on a tablet, and we have a conflict, and I kind of sketch something out, and I kind of show the tablet to the contractor, and he like gets way too close to look, and I was like, wow, this was normal last year. That's a normal thing to do. Is, hey, look at what we're working on, and I was like,
do you guys find yourself watching TV and seeing like an old movie or show?
Oh God, yes.
Like that,
all the time.
Like getting on a train or getting in like in a room. It's just too many people at the gym. What the hell is this?
Sometimes I'll watch like old highlights and I see like the arenas look very compact, and I was like, oh God, I'm clutching my pearls. I was like, what are we doing? Chat's asking, what's your favorite Billie song?
That's a good question. Probably Bad Guy. I like Bad Guy, but there's a couple of her songs on her album that are actually really good. And at the top of my head, I don't know. I used to run to her album a lot. My oldest taught me who she was. And her whole entire album is incredible. And I actually enjoyed the concert. I mean, I took my girls, my two oldest, the energy she has. It was a great concert. But Bad Guy probably is my favorite one.
Who's your favorite artist or band?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of a boomer, so I kid you not, guys. My prized possession in my house. Like, my daughters are like, Dad, again. Like, I listen to Nat King Cole every day and Celia Cruz. I have my prized possession. I have a Nat King Cole signed album that I have.
Ooh.
And see,
that's
so
dope.
Over a record. Obviously, I didn't get it. Nat died in 1965, but still, you know what I mean. So I love that thing, and I listen to his music. Like, I love Nat King Cole and Celia Cruz, and and a lot of jazz. But new artists, guys, I listen to anything. Like, I love. It's funny. I was just having dinner with my oldest before we were on, and I had the Chronic on, Dr. Dre, the Chronic, and I was telling my daughter, I said, this album, like when I was a teenager, 17, 18, this is all I listened to on a loop, And she's like, yeah, I've heard this song, Boomer. And I've heard this album.
All right, Will, so before we get you out here, I want to get you in on some of the listener questions from our Discord server. Now, if you guys want to get involved in this, so every time we have a guest on, we throw it out to our Discord server. We're going to ask our guests some of the questions that you guys put. So join our Discord server. It's really fun. We have live game chats. We're doing lots of cool stuff in there. So that link will be in the description of this podcast. If you're listening on your podcast app, or if you're watching on stream, you can just click the little tab About on our Twitch page, and it'll take you right to our Discord. I'm sure that one of our mods is going to link you there right now. But so Ray is asking, who is next in line to succeed Pat Riley?
Oh, that's a great question. I've always thought that Spo might be, but the years have gone by. I don't think Spo wants to do that. I think Spo loves coaching too much. I think when you look at Nick Arison, Nick is a guy they groomed a lot. They really love Nick, obviously, I mean, being in Harrison, but Nick is also a really bright guy, went to Duke, and he's been with the organization a long time. I think Nick and Shane, if they keep Shane around, are kind of a big part of the future of this organization in some way.
Lifers. So Twisted Tapioca asks, apparently you did chirotherapy, and he's wanted to know if you enjoyed it, and the fact that 200 degrees sounds insane. But you said you felt no discomfort. Is that true? Did you do that?
Before all this, yeah, I was doing that cryo. I had a bone thing. I met a guy who at an event who did this, who was doing the cryo. And he said, "Hey, come to my thing. I'll give you the first one free just to test it out." That was like his deal. Like, you go the first one free, and man, the first one you could last like a minute. But then you get used to, you go in there for 2-3 minutes, and it actually is great. Man, it's incredible when your muscles.
Sounds awful.
Now, you wear like gloves and big socks. I mean, trust me, you don't just go in there naked. But I mean, you have to go in there without a shirt on. But it really helped with the joints. Again, I'm an old guy, so like the joints and the knees.
Well, you're a young man. What are you talking about? You look great.
Have a great hairline. What are you talking
What are you, 45?
45, yeah. I've been
Dude,
here
you look great. What are you
almost half my life. Thank you. Dude, I got here in 90. I've been here until 10 almost 22 years. So I feel that way.
You look great, man. 45's the new 44. Don't worry.
Exactly. That's what I always say. Thank you.
Well, you're not on. Listen, radio. I've always joked with my friends in radio. Radio ages you in a way that television doesn't. I don't know why, but like poor Zaslow is working these awful hours.
Those morning hours are tough, man. Those morning.
Dude, Zaz used to do the post game. He'd be at the arena and then he'd do whatever 5 a.m. on the thing.
Tobin's the same way. Tobin works.
Oh, Tobin.
He's one of my favorite people in this market. He does so much stuff. He's really, really good. He's really good. Man.
Tobin's the best. I love everybody, and I've said this a million times. Like, everybody in this market has been incredibly supportive of everything we do, and it's the community here is so good. Like, I don't know, everyone's great. All right, last two questions.
Okay.
Twisted. So Karmic Beat asks, what was it like interviewing Macho Marlins man, Mean Gene Manso? What is that? Is that a Brendan Tobin bit?
That's a Tobin thing. Yeah. I did a whole.
Okay.
We did I got on like Mean Gene Oberlin. I had like the mustache, and I put like I had no hair. I put like a big padding, thing, whatever, to make it look like I had no hair. And he came in as Macho Marlins, man. I told you I love Tobin, so we had a lot of fun on one of our Sunday night show. And he was just in character, and I'm just sitting there. I grew up watching WWF when I was a kid, so Mean Gene Oberlin, it was like, that's the guy. He was the man. So it was cool to. It was a lot of fun doing that. Again, Tobin, he's good. He's great at what he does.
Do people still watch wrestling? Like, is that something that kids
do? I wonder.
Yes, my nephews are obsessed with it. That's all they wanted for Christmas this year. It's definitely seems like it's a younger demographic, or maybe it's just because my brother, who was a similar age, a huge WWF fan growing up, so he's shown it to his kids.
Dude, I remember going to the West Palm Beach Auditorium and watching the British Bulldogs and Junkyard Dog and Macho Man Savage and all these Coco Beware and all these wrestlers when I in the 80s, and I love that stuff. But I think kids still love it. I think you see a lot of other kids that like other things, but I think WWE, that stuff is still cool.
I see a lot of millennials going to these events, like millennials like living their childhood like that are like, that's what I've seen. But I was wondering if like kids still liked it.
WrestleMania, man.
Yeah, people like, I know Mike Ryan loves WrestleMania. Mike Ryan has a little.
I went to an event. Speaking of Tampa, I went to interview John Cena a few years back, and I stayed for the event after the event. I was like, "Damn, this is awesome!" I had a blast. It was still pretty cool.
Listen, they put on really fun productions. I mean, if you're into it, they keep you for a while.
It's entertaining.
All right, Lil. Last one again from Twisted Tapioca. Yo, OG, shout out to Twisted Tapioca, who's a sub here on
good
Twitch.
People.
Yo, good people, great supporter of everything that we do. We love you. He asks, pick one and the other disappears forever. Tacos or coffee?
Pick one. I would pick tacos. I didn't but
you're not a coffee person?
I didn't start drinking coffee until like 2 years ago.
Well, that's crazy.
We got my wife and I bought an espresso machine because she loves coffee. And now the funny thing is, I use it more than she does, and I love it because every morning I just drink one a day. In the morning I make it. That starts my day. But I can live without it. I can do tea. I was a tea guy before. I can go back to tea, but nobody's taking.
Will, I'm stunned.
Nobody's taking Taco Tuesday.
You don't have any coffee shops in Miami that she used to go to?
Wow.
Like Salty Donut?
Oh, the donuts are the best. I mean, the worst thing is that my kids go to school in that area in Wynwood, so I'm always passing Salty Donuts, so I'm always sort of going there getting donuts. It's a bad combination, And there's a lot of cool little places, but no, I love tacos, dude. I like Taco Tuesday, a good taco to me over coffee any day.
What's your go-to taco down here in Miami?
Well, it's funny. There's a place that we found during the pandemic, and I wish I would give it a shout out if I knew what it was called. My wife found it. It's over by Little Havana, over at Cayo Ocho, somewhere in that area. And it's like very street taco kind of place.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't know the name
It was
either.
on Food Network. I know exactly which one you're talking
Oh, it was
about.
on the Diner Drivers and Dives thing.
I wish I could give it a shout out because I would. But like she always orders. So the first thing she ordered during the pandemic, she went and picked it up, and they bring you like just this big thing, like a silver platter of like, all the different, carne asada, the chicken, the shell.
Yeah.
Dude, it was incredible. So we got it like maybe 3 or 4 times after that. Like I try to do my own Taco Tuesdays and cook, but when we want like food like that, we've been picking that up. Yeah, we've been kind of take out from there.
How much takeout have you done in the pandemic? Because like for us, it's we've done way too much in my house. It's been a lot.
Up until the last 2 or 3 months, we did a lot. But the last 2 months, we've been trying to cook. Like tonight, I cooked for my oldest, and we try to cook ourselves because man, you spend a lot of money takeout. Now, it's good to support local business.
That's what I'm saying. That's how I justify it.
Agree. But at some point, I started looking at my checking account. I'm like, damn, I'm eating too much. I'm eating out too much stuff. So we try to.
That's why we're doing more streams, Will.
Yeah, seriously.
We're Will Manso, thank you so much for joining us. You are great.
Local legend.
Local legend, Will Manso.
Guys.
We hope to get you back in the Rooms to Go
on the
Lounge.
telecast and maybe
He's gonna say
Next
drip
time,
on the telecast.
next time I'm on the thing, I'm gonna be on the Rooms to Go couch, and I'll say drip.
There we go. We will wait for it. Chat, thank you so much for coming. Remember, right now, 8:30, we are going to go live with an episode of Light Skinned Opinions hosted by Alphonse Sidney, Christopher Maddox, and Parrish. That is Parrish Thompson. I forgot. I was going to call him Robert
Nailed the
Parrish.
dismount, G.
Nailed the dismount. I love Parrish, dude. Parrish is my guy. I've had beers with Parrish. Parrish is the best. Maddox, Alf, check them out. This is about right now. This is Light Skinned Opinions. It's a Black Opinions podcast, and Alf and the guys are going to talk about everything that's happening right now in our country, and you can't miss, as you hear on Heat Beat, Alf is one of the most thoughtful damn people in this market and really doing it right now. So you want to check that out. Thanks again to Will Manso. Check out our pregame show on when do they play again? Tomorrow?
Saturday.
Friday? Saturday. I don't even know. Listen, I'm destroyed to check.
Just let's go.
Pregame show and then and then Hangover Time after. Thanks, Will.
Anytime, guys.